Hi, welcome to this week's podcast. I'm not dead yet. Well, again, it ends up that the title kind of precipitated the content. The title of this week's podcast is The Perils of Progress. So I named it The Perils of Progress because, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I sent texts out to a whole bunch of people that I know, and I asked them, what most memorable progressive thing has happened in the last decade or so that you think has, changed the world the most? And the responses I got, and I guess it was the context of sort of what's happening in the world, I want to say surprised me, but it didn't really surprise me. So the most monumental thing that's happened, I guess, that is true, is COVID. And it did monumentally change the world, I guess, but really not in a progressive way, actually, because if you think about it, it was kind of treated the same way as, I guess, the Spanish flu after World War One, or we really didn't know much about COVID when it first hit, right? All these advances in medicine and all this progress that we made in vaccines and penicillin and everything, and the flu and everything like that, and COVID comes and we have no clue. We don't know where it came from. We don't know how to treat it. We don't know how it gets passed on, and we're locked up in our houses all over the world. Millions of people die, and we don't know as a world of human beings what to do and how to prevent it and how to save ourselves. And the changes in the world around us are monumental. And so it made me think about progress, really, the perils of progress. You know what the perils of progress are? Perils of progress is that we get so caught up in all the advances that we tend to forget that, in essence, we don't change at all. Human beings are human beings. And as much as technology may change, as much as innovation allows us to advance and progress, I guess, in the sciences, we don't change as human beings. Human beings are still selfish, they're still greedy, they're still judgmental and intolerant, bigoted, racist, judgmental. And I think until that changes, and I don't think it ever will, frankly, I think it's part of our DNA, I think the perils of progress is that we forget to account for each other. Maybe one of the things that we need to do is that we need to decide how we measure progress. Really, what is progress in society? Is progress measured in that we need to work less? Is that how we measure progress? I remember when the BlackBerry first came out. I was working, and everybody who had a title that was more impressive than mine started getting BlackBerries, and I was like, oh, well, that's what I need to work for. I need to work to become important enough that I get to have BlackBerry too. And so when that day happened, and I was important enough to get a BlackBerry, and I got one, and I realized that it didn't mean I worked less. It meant I worked more. I was reachable all the time. It was a 24/7 job all of a sudden. I never escaped the office. So was that progress? The technology had improved so that I could be findable all the time. Was that progress? Technology advanced, so in that sense it was progress. But now that you can work 24/7, was that progress? Was it the peril of progress that you could work more? So let's look at really, go back to COVID. COVID, the perils of progress. We had the President of the United States telling us to drink bleach as a cure to this, pandemic. That's progress? No. The cable news networks, 24/7. So now we're totally obsessed with, watching, all the horrors of the world all day long, all night long. Is that progress? I don't think so, really. No. You know, this misinformation we hear about on all the social media, we're being fed by bots, and we don't know what's real and what's not real. The truth doesn't seem to matter anymore because now we have the ability to watch TV all the time. We have so many channels giving us all this information. We don't even know what the truth is anymore. Is that progress? No. So maybe the perils of progress is really that we don't even know what the truth is anymore. We can't tell a fact from fiction. We are so caught up in the idea of advances and progress in technology that we've forgotten our values. We've forgotten how to save ourselves, and we've forgotten really what matters. Isn't the perils of progress that we've forgotten what makes us better as a society? We've gotten so caught up in the shiny objects of technology that we've forgotten to better ourselves, right? You know, I think about actually what makes human beings better and survive. Remember when we used to really try to, remember when the goal was to get to the moon? And then we all watched as, you know, the rockets went up, and then they blew up. And the people died. Perils of progress, right? We're watching over the last couple of weeks what's happening over in the Middle East. And the perils of progress are still hindered by the realities of prejudice and antisemitism and discrimination and hatred and judgment. And I realize that, you know, the perils of progress, first of all, it's a catchy title, but it doesn't really matter because human beings can't change or they don't change. It's like a condition that we have, and I don't think that all the advances in technology or the internet or cyber world or all this stuff, it's meaningless. It's meaningless because human beings are by nature, I don't think we're very nice. I don't think we treat each other very well. We don't keep each other safe. You know, we keep talking about during our lifetime, and you know, we're middle agers, and we're talking about we're not dead yet, and how proud we are. Well, you know what? You know, we're looking now as middle-aged plussers, and we're talking about how it's more difficult, you know, perhaps to be middle-aged now than perhaps it was 50 years ago. Why? Well, first of all, we're living longer. That's one of the things that progress has done. Medicine has found ways to keep us alive longer. Is that really a good thing, though? Are we leading better qualities of life as we're living longer? I don't know. Do I want to live to 100 years old? I'm not sure. If I live to 100 years old or 150 years old, is my quality of life going to be better? Not necessarily. How am I going to support myself to 150 years old? Is the government going to magically take care of myself? Not this government. This government doesn't seem to respect you more as you get older. If anything, they respect you less, I guess. Right? Is that progress? Not really. There hasn't been a magical cure found to, you know, make you happier as you live longer. No. You know what's actually always surprised me is, you know, all of these cures they found for all of these, you know, I don't know, other diseases. How could they not have found a cure for cancer yet? Explain that to me. How could they not have found a cure for cancer yet? My own, yeah, I guess it's a conspiracy theory, I guess, is that, you know, I don't think it's cost effective to find a cure for cancer. Right? A lot of people make a lot of money treating cancer, or at least applying a Band-Aid to it. But, you know, it's not really cost effective. If they were to find a cure for cancer, think of all the people that would be unemployed, all the technology, all of the progress that would all of a sudden go by the wayside if we found a cure for cancer. I think progress is measured by a lot of different things, but I'm not necessarily sure that it's always measured in a way that connotes success. You know, we talk about the internet, and I'm going to tell you about the peril of progress. And actually, as it relates to this podcast, you know, I do a lot of promotion for these podcasts. I'm trying again to get people to watch. And in fact, before I go any further, please, while you're at your computers now, share this podcast. I want you to share it. I want you please to help me share the podcast help me get followers, help me like it. I need you right now to go and help me promote it. Share, follow, like. I need your help with this. Um, so anyway, as I was trying to promote the podcast this week, Perils of Progress, and you can see on, if you were able to get the post and you were able to get the ad, you see I used words like misinformation. I used, TikTok. I used, what other words did I use in my promotion? I used SEOs. I used words, and Facebook would not approve my promotion. They said it was because it was social issues and elections and other. They would not approve it. And I tried it a different way. They still wouldn't approve it. Perils of Podcast, we talked ourselves into censorship. So in this great world where progress has given us social media, it's also quieted us. It's allowed us to be quieted down. Perils of Progress is that we've become frightened of the truth. We've given into censorship. We have allowed ourselves to be regulated. We have allowed ourselves to ban books. We have allowed ourselves to compromise our ideals because of progress. So when that happened, I actually thought, oh, thank you, Facebook. You've proved my point. Another friend told me that she really had no idea how progress had imperiled our future because there's so much going on in the world. She can't tell one day from the next how to even see what progress has occurred. Is the world really going forward or is it going backwards? Let's talk about artificial intelligence. Again, I'm going to stop, share, like, follow, please. Somebody told me that they listen to podcasts, and that happens all the time, where in the middle of the podcast, they get in touch with their audience and say, please share, follow. So I'm doing the same. Let's talk about artificial intelligence. A lot of the work that I do has to do with intellectual property, trademarks, and copyrights. And AI has become a really big part of that. And because a lot of AI is built upon the contributions made by people, made by human beings. And the biggest fear with AI, honestly, is that it's going to replace human beings. So is it true that the biggest peril of progress is that we're going to cause our own extinction? I remember when I first started my own business, and this goes back about, 13 years ago. And one of the first programs that I went to, the first lunch programs that I went to when I was trying to network, was a man who had, I don't remember his name, and I apologize, but he had started to invent robots and robotic entities, or robotic programs, and it was a form of AI. And he, even 13 years ago, was giving out warnings that if we weren't careful, AI was going to overtake human beings, because we were developing technology based on our intelligence that was going to be doing its own thinking, that was going to be doing its own programming, and that one day could even be doing its own reproducing. And so what do we need human beings anymore for? And really, that was kind of scary. And it you really didn't contemplate it then, but think about it. It kind of makes sense. We are creating our own successors in the world. Perils of progress. We're kind of dumb. So, again, I think the perils of progress is that we forget who we are. We forget our values. We forget our morals. We forget what makes us as human beings special. We also forget what makes us not so good all the time. I swore when I started this podcast that I wasn't going to get into politics. I wasn't going to get into anything controversial because I really didn't want to. I didn't want to divide the potential audience. I don't want to do that, and I think there's enough divisiveness in the world right now, and I didn't want that to be what this podcast was about. Progress does that. That's part of what we've seen happen, especially in this country, in the United States, in the last decade or so. I had a friend of mine tell me that he doesn't even know how we could even live in the United States anymore. He sees it as a broken down reality show lately. And it is. I mean, if you've watched what's happened with the Speaker of the House elections, if you watch what's happened with our inflation rate, if you've watched what's happened lately with the protests and everything that's going on, the United States is definitely a reality show to watch what's going on around here. But sometimes the misunderstandings that we have between one another because we don't really know one another so well is scary. Yes, what happened with COVID was a major fuck up, frankly. The aftermath of that has been interesting, though. What's happened in terms of the relationship between employees and employers, contractors and companies. If you look at what's happened with the regulation or the deregulation of the internet and who owns what, AI, and what happens next, the censorship and the banning of the books and who owns what. I mean, all that is fascinating. It's a perils of progress, though. We're allowing ourselves to be regulated, and in some ways, we're all going to be stymied because what we have not done, and we have not done successfully, is we have not learned yet to love one another. We have not learned yet to take care of one another. And until we know how to do those things and to accept one another, we will not embrace progress. We will not learn yet to really accept progress as an advancement of human nature. And instead, progress will overcome us until we're totally just done. And that's the peril of progress, is that it will eat us up alive. It will divide us. And that's what we're letting happen with the misinformation on social media. That's what we're letting happen by just accepting when somebody like Facebook tells me, no, you can't post that here. No, you can't say that here. You have to prove to us that you are who you are. And we're going to be the arbiter of that. We're going to be the ones who decide what you can say on social media. That's what we accept when we accept people as leaders who dictate what the truth is, and we don't bother looking any further. When we watch the news 24/7, and we decide that that's what the truth is, that's the peril of progress. Before, when there were 3 stations on television, and we were satisfied with that, even before television, we just listened to families to the radio, and you took it as a family time together. Wasn't it just kind of okay? That was enough, right? That brought a family together. They weren't complaining. So, I mean, is there something to be said that that if you only know what you know and you're happy with that, that's okay? Sure. Is the peril of progress knowing that you always want more, you always want better, so you're never going to be satisfied? Okay. Is it harder now than it was before? We can always have this argument. I always go back to the fact that I look sometimes at the LGBTQ community as an example. I think that one of the problems that we have in our society today is that we just put labels on everything. Everybody is labeled as something. And, and again, going back to LGBTQ as an example, just so many letters, so many letters and so many labels. I think human beings have been human beings for eons and eons and eons, and I personally don't think that people's sexual appetites have changed in generations or eons. I just think the labels have changed, and I just think that today people just like applying labels to things. And I think that's a shame, because when you apply labels to things, you're causing people to be divided, and it's another way for you to divide one person from another and to judge one person from another, because if they're labeled differently than you are, then you can judge them. So I think, the perils of progress, again, is that we have a means of labeling things differently from us. Religion is divisive, labels are divisive, societies are divisive, immigration is divisive, and I think that's a shame. So I think that all of that leads to our generation having it more, having it harder perhaps than generations before us, because the advances that we've made in technology, the internet, the social media, the all of these advances in technology that seem to make the world more accessible to all of us, also makes us all more divided, because we also see the ugliness of the world clearer, and we are also exposed to so much more hatred and so much more ugliness, and it's not healthy. It's not. I when World War II was around, and there were all those horrific things to do, we didn't see it every day. Not that it didn't. It's not that it wasn't more than horrific. It was. We didn't see it every day. Today, we see it. We see the ugliness, the barbarousness, the horrificness of the and the and the marching through the streets and the race, and we see it all, and we can't stand it, and it makes us angry, and it makes us hate, and it just brings it up to anger and in our society, and it scares us. And so while what happened, you know, in the 1940s was just as bad and maybe even worse, I don't know, than what is happening today, the perils of progress means that we are angrier, means that we are more violent, means that we have created a society that is more open and more angry. Perils of progress means that we have created a world of very angry people. And so I think as we have reached this stage in our lives, we have number one, a greater responsibility to make sure that our children perhaps understand that they have a greater responsibility to do more research on their own. We've talked about this before. But we also have a greater responsibility, I think, to calm things down to the extent we can and not pass on our fears to our children, and to do a better job than we're doing to provide a safe place, and to I talk about finding happy. It's not so easy. It's not so easy to find happy. It's what is easy though? Turn off the TVs, close down the social media, and try to find those spaces of existence when families just came together around the radio and had dinners together, gather around the big table and each other, and not just look through the channels on what's on Netflix tonight. When Facebook told me that I couldn't post the perils of progress because I might have used the word misinformation, that was kind of shocking. The world's changed. It's not the same place it was in the 1950s. Not even the same place it was in the early 2000s. My child is not living in the same world that I lived in when I played baseball in the streets of Pennsylvania. You have to lock your doors now. You can't trust what you read on the internet. Books are being banned. Our politicians aren't telling the truth. And the United States is not necessarily, this great old country that used to be that everybody wants to live in. It's just not. It's not easy being middle-aged plus, so it's not easy being middle-aged plus in the United States. But again, we're not dead yet. And we've got each other. We've got this podcast. Share. Please get people to like us and to listen to us. And We're here with each other. We've got a responsibility to each other. Perils of Progress is that we forget that we're human beings. We get so caught up in the technology, we get so caught up and angry in the misinformation that we forget to do our part. And we forget to bond and to love and to come together. So again, we're not dead yet. We need to push the anger. And we need to come together. So we'll come together every Sunday like we do for this podcast, which we're going to share among the friends. We're going to get more followers, and we're going to build this into a community. Thank you again for tuning in. I love doing this. I hope you love being a part of it as much as I do. And progress, we're going to be there. But fight. Fight for our families. Fight for each other. Fight for the next 50 or 40 years of our lives together. And we're going to make it. It's a tough world out there right now. We're not dead yet. See y'all next week. Bye.